All right, well, welcome everyone. My name is Dr. Marlena Lester, and I'm the Director of Advising here in the College of Engineering at Virginia Tech. And I'm so excited to have you here as part of our virtual orientation experience for the College of Engineering. I will be joined later in today's presentation by Dr. Keith Thompson. He's our Associate Dean for Academic Affairs that will share some specific details about our operations. Dr. Thompson and I both operate out of what's called the College of Engineering Academic Affairs Office, and that's where we are responsible for lots of things that go on within the college related to the change of major process and a few other things. But for today's session and for the portion that I'm going to cover, I want to specifically talk about an overview from the engineering perspective when it comes to orientation. And I want to make sure that we get everything kind of squared away that you need to know in order to have a successful transition here at Virginia Tech. So to give you kind of a high-level overview about this process, orientation at Virginia Tech has taken on several names over the years, and we are referencing what we do within the College of Engineering as our virtual academic advising and course registration process. That virtual academic advising and course registration process consists of this college overview session, some optional Q&A sessions, and I'll talk about those in just a moment, academic advising, which is facilitated in different platforms, but all have students have an opportunity to meet with an advisor one-on-one, and then the actual course registration component that you'll do as a new student. So that kind of gives you the big pieces that we have. On the College of Engineering website, we have what's called an engineering orientation timeline. And on our timeline, we have details that lay out what has occurred from your May 1st, the official acceptance date of Virginia Tech, until today. So between May 1st and June 12th, we ask all new students in the college, regardless if you're a first-time in college student in general engineering or building construction, or if you're a transfer student, to complete items on our engineering orientation checklist. That engineering orientation checklist is our best way of showcasing all the specific things that you need in order to be a successful transition to the university, because there's a lot of things. And I realize that you have modules for the university that you have to do. For new students who are living on campus, you have housing contracts, you have financial aid things that you need to do. So what we've tried to do in our engineering orientation checklist is provide a comprehensive list of the majority of the things that we know that you need to take care of and kind of put it all in one place. So if you've not found that engineering orientation checklist and you're feeling a little lost, I could understand why, because if you're trying to follow all of this, the emails that you're getting and so forth, then it is a lot of information. So definitely take a look at that engineering orientation checklist on our orientation website. On May 8th, all new students in the College of Engineering received a College of Engineering orientation welcome email. That email came from me just to kind of get you set up with some of the basic details that you need as a new student, and has information regarding your onboarding experience. Then on June 5th, you would have received information about our virtual academic advising and course registration process that would have came from your actual academic advisor or from an advisor in a program. So for example, if you were in the Department of Engineering Education as a first-time in college general engineering student, you should have received that email directly from your advisor. But then as we go throughout the orientation season, if we get students that change majors or students that come into the college, then you might get that from more of a general account from this point forward. Between June 12th and July 28th, there's the opportunity, of course, to attend this mandatory virtual one-on-one advising for your specific majors. All programs in our college do things just a little bit differently, but all of them consistently are requiring students to meet with their advisor one-on-one. The dates and all of those specifics are in that June 5th email from the advisor from that program on how that process looks. Then beginning this Monday on June 12th as well, registration for the fall semester opened up for the entire university community. So you're able to see what courses are available to you, to be able to go in and register for classes. And you can do class registration before you meet with your advisor, after you meet with your advisor, or any combination of the two. So there are tools and resources for you on our orientation website in order to help you with that process as well. Today is the start of our mandatory virtual College of Engineering overview sessions, and we also this afternoon at 3 o'clock will have our first optional virtual College of Engineering Q&A session. So those Q&A sessions or question and answer sessions are specifically around certain topics. And the one that we're going to cover today is specifically related to the computer requirement. So the computer requirement is a much less complicated process than it used to be several years ago, but it allows you to hear directly from our IT support on the specific specifications that you need for a computer. We will also host a session next week on peer mentoring for students that are not participating in Hypatia Galileo. That's an option that you can join to participate in having a mentor in the College of Engineering. We will also have the following week Hokie Shops. That's our Virginia Tech bookstore. So if you want to come and learn about purchasing supplies, books, all those kinds of things, they'll do a session about that. And then after we'll have a break in there, and then we'll have on July 12th a session on career support for the College of Engineering, and then we'll have a session on study abroad. And so all of those recordings and the recording from today's session, barring any major technical difficulties, we'll post on the orientation website. So instead of having the link to Zoom, we will replace that link with the recording link. So you'll be able to see that. And so that's a great way to be able to go back and reference those if your schedule does not allow you to be there live. As mentioned on our engineering orientation website, there's lots of resources for you. And if you scroll down on that page, you'll be able to see some specific details related to the checklist that I mentioned earlier, details related to the ALEKS placement if you are enrolling in Math 1225 or chemistry at Virginia Tech, details about the computer requirement and additional supplies that you might need. If you were coming in with a lot of transfer credits, AP, IB, dual enrollment, there's a process on there for how to self-evaluate your transfer credits until those officially show up on your Virginia Tech records. And there are a couple pieces of information I wanted to share with you today about the self-evaluation of transfer credit process. One of them being that if you are expecting to bring in AP credit for some classes, just know that Virginia Tech across the board recommends that you accept that credit and you move on. And in fact, if you have read information on that self-evaluation transfer credit website, you'll see that we do an internal administrative process called an AP duplicate drop. And so any students who accidentally sign up for a class that they have AP credit for, we would drop students from that class if you self-enroll. We also are very much keeping up to date with College Board release dates of this May 2023 release of AP scores. That's supposed to happen around July 5th. Virginia Tech receives those electronically, and then they should be put into the Hokie SPOS system as soon as we get those and processed. I've also heard lots of questions out there about what are your degree requirements going to look like? What kind of classes are you going to take? Also, some specific questions around general engineering being a major. So I will clarify a few of those details, but if you are a first-time in college student and you were admitted as a general engineering student into the Department of Engineering Education, then you cannot graduate from that program. So you do have to select an intended major to determine what your degree requirements would be for the next 4 or so years. And so on our orientation website, we do have copies of the check sheets for the entering class of 2023-2024. Those have not been publicly put on the registrar's website yet. They're still working through some degree audit coding behind the scenes. And so for orientation season, we have posted that on our orientation website for engineering. So please make sure you use the engineering orientation website is kind of your home base for finding information, because that's where you're going to find all those details about your degree requirements, your computer supplies, any specific details about course registration, and some of those specifics. So speaking of course registration, there is some tools there on the website for you to watch some video tutorials on how to do our registration process through a couple different platforms, but also want to make sure you're aware that at Virginia Tech, we do major restrict some courses, and sometimes that can be one of the most frustrating things as a new student, is to understand why you can't add this particular class or this particular section of a course. And what that means is to make sure that everyone has equitable availability of courses. Certain colleges will restrict classes to students in their majors only, and the other courses will be available to everyone at the university. So there is resources there for you to learn how to look up major restrictions on the timetable classes or the class search features. I just want to point that out because that tends to be one of the top questions that we get as far as understanding that major restricted piece. If you were a first-time college student admitted as general engineering, you will be able to read details about the change of major process. So in order to go from general engineering into a specific degree granting engineering discipline, there's rules and procedures for that on the website as well, along with resources and support that Dr. Thompson will talk about a little bit later. And then we will also have some frequently asked questions on there. So in addition to the College of Engineering orientation website, all new students were given access to a Canvas site that has a lot of specific details related to the orientation advising experience, some little nuances of certain policies, procedures, and so forth that are located there. So transfer students, your site is labeled on the screen. General engineering students as well, and building construction, you have a site as well for you as a new student. Only students have access to those sites because they are treated like our like any course site would be for new students. You would only have access to those as a student, but definitely go through and look through those materials for your process here at the university. The next thing I specifically wanted to talk about is looking at transcripts and score reports. One of the primary things and priority items that we have on our engineering orientation checklist is to make sure that you send your transcripts and score reports to Virginia Tech. So you will want to send all of your official high school, college, and university transcripts to the Office of Undergrad Admissions. Those can be sent through parchment, electronic transfer, or by mail. You can verify if Virginia Tech has received any kind of college transcript. So if you did like dual enrollment and you had, let's just use an example, if you're from Northern Virginia and you took classes at Northern Virginia Community College as a high school student, but dual enrollment, you would want to make sure that you contact Northern Virginia Community College directly and have them send your transcript to Virginia Tech. Your high school transcript could not be used to award that credit. So you want to make sure it comes directly from the original source. So you can verify on HokeySpa once we receive those college transcripts. There's no way to notify, to check to see if your high school transcripts are received, but the Office of Undergrad Admissions will definitely follow up if they do not have those details. You also want to make sure that you're sending all of your official score reports for AP, IB, CLEP, Cambridge, or any other kind of testing that you've done prior to coming to Virginia Tech to our registrar's office through the school code that's listed here. These specific details are also listed on that engineering orientation checklist. It is very important that you do kind of monitor your records though, and it is your responsibility as a student to make sure that you are keeping all of that up to date and you make sure that it's accurate. So as transfer credits come in specifically for those dual enrollment classes, kind of verifying that they match to the transfer equivalency database. And if there's any inaccuracies, please let people know. There's actually contact information on the website for you to do so. You can go into our HokeySpa account and to your grades menu and see your transfer and other additional credits, which displays all your classes and how those are going to transfer here at the university. And so that's a nice way to seeing those details. One thing that you might note on that transfer and other additional credit screen is if you're coming from a school, specifically maybe out of state. I see this a lot from our students transferring from Utah or schools that we don't see on a regular basis every single semester is that you might have a notation on your transcript screen that says send syllabi to credits@vt.edu. And so what that means is you'll need to send your syllabus for that course for your class to be officially evaluated here at Virginia Tech. It doesn't mean the course won't transfer. It just means we need a little bit more information in order to determine the true Virginia Tech equivalencies. And we will also be notifying students of those notations on that particular area moving forward throughout the summer. Earlier, I mentioned that we have kind of students admitted to general engineering. We have students admitted directly into certain programs. Essentially, what that means is we have two types of degrees at Virginia Tech. We have restricted degrees, where at the first time in college level or first year student, freshman, every student in our college in those restricted degrees are admitted first into general engineering, and then you can progress into one of our 14 restricted degree programs. So you go from general engineering into these programs as a first time in college student. As a transfer student, students are admitted as external transfers to the university. They're directly admitted into these restricted degree programs. The other option that we have in our college is called non-restricted degrees. And non-restricted degree in our college is building instruction. And so we have those two different types of programs. And what that essentially means on the logistics of it is that restricted programs across the university require certain courses, GPA, or criteria for a student to transition from that general engineering program into the specific major. And it's not just the College of Engineering that have restricted programs. There's many across the university, but that's the way that we kind of label that at the universities: restricted programs versus non-restricted programs. And like I mentioned, on our orientation website, you'll be able to see some of the specific details of those requirements that are necessary for students to transition from general engineering to the major right there on that page. I also mentioned that, we have degree requirements and check sheets on that landing page for orientation. And I just want to kind of provide an overview of some of the components of that. So when you're looking at your degree requirements, essentially they're comprised of four major areas. We have something called Pathways to General Education, which is our general education criteria required for all students at Virginia Tech. You have your specific major requirements, you have technical electives, and you have sometimes free electives. Now, not all programs have free electives, but if they do, it'll be labeled on the degree requirement sheet or check sheet. So the way that works is about 36% of your degree requirements are going to be general education. Around 45 is your major requirements, and then 17% is your technical elective, and 0 to 2% is kind of our free electives for some of our majors. The credit ranges from our programs, everything from 123 to 132. So if you're attending larger sessions at the university for the orientation experience, they're going to talk a lot about programs that require 120 credit hours. Well, in the College of Engineering, the lowest credit program we have is 123. And the reason that's important to recognize as a difference is that in order to graduate in 4 years, which is our ultimate goal here, well, for brand new first time in college, transfers, you have a goal probably of 2 or 3 years, right? Is if you have 123 credits, then you're going to have to take at least 15 credits, 15.375 per semester for 8 semesters to graduate in 4 years. But if you're in a program that requires 132 credits or more, right, in that space, then you're going to have to average about 16.5 credits per semester to graduate in 8 semesters. And so when we in the College of Engineering talk about recommendations for your very first semester of courses, we're going to talk about a recommendation of 15 to 17 credit hours every single semester to kind of make that work generally across the programs. The way that you can look at the degree requirements is on our graduation check sheets. And as I mentioned right now, the best place to look at our check sheets are on the orientation website. And we have that linked off of that main page. That's where you're going to be able to find those specific details specifically laid out for each semester of your curriculum that you have. Also, you'll have notations on that checklist of when courses are known to be taught. So not every class is taught every semester. So there'll be a little subscript there that says F for fall only, S for spring only, S1 for summer 1, S2 for summer 2, and occasionally we will have a winter offering of a class. It's very important that you realize that not every class is taught every semester. And when we're talking about planning out your academic career, the check sheet is one of the best tools to help you do that. I mentioned earlier too that you all would have received an email from an advisor on June 5th. If for some reason you've missed that message, you can locate your academic advisor on Hokie SPAL, and you can go into view your general student information or also on Navigate to find your advisor assignment. You can also look up who your advisor is off of our resources support page. We have a list of all the College of Engineering advisors there and their email addresses. So if you've not made contact or received information from your advisor, you all have, but if you are unsure of who your advisor is, definitely look back around your emails around that June 5th timeframe. But also, if you're unsure of who that person is, you can look that up on Hokie SPAL as well. You can make appointments with your advisor after you kind of got through the orientation season on our platform called Navigate. It's a great way for you to log in and make an appointment with your advisor. So full-time status is something that's very important to a lot of different offices here on campus. But number one, in order to be a full-time student at Virginia Tech, a lot of things related to financial aid, NCAA athletes. If you're an international student here on a visa, you need to minimally have 12 credit hours to be considered full-time student. If you are not in those categories, full-time may not be as critical for you, but if you're living on campus, typically that's a requirement that you have to have full-time status. And so that recommendation of 15 to 17 credit hours for engineering kind of falls in line with that. The only exceptions to that is there might be certain students in our core cadet program. If you're an ROTC program, that you might have higher than that. You might have up to 18 or 19, but you cannot take more than 19 credit hours in a given semester. That is the maximum that you can take at Virginia Tech. So that 15 to 17 is our recommendation, but 12 credits is to be full-time. Once you kind of take care of meeting with your advisor, you go through that process and you are all sorted and your classes seem to be kind of squared away, then the best place for us to help you locate where your final class schedule is going to be on Hokie SPAL under the Classic Student Schedule view. This is just a sample from last season. I didn't pull a screenshot for fall of 2023 for today, but you'll be able to see on the left, the CRN, which stands for course reference number, course request number, course information, the modality. It will also have the title of the class, your grading option, your credit hours, your time, your date, your location, the instructor, and then it also have your final exam schedule. So as an example, we might have a class on Thursday, but your final exam may not be on Thursday at the end of the semester. So it's very important once you get your class schedule finalized, if you're trying to plan any returns to your home after the fall semester or planning any vacations or travel arrangements, you want to make sure that you look at your exam schedule before making those flight plans or arrangements, because your exam schedule is very specific to that particular course. And then, of course, also following up with your professor on the first day of classes on when your final exam is. But that's our university-wide exam schedule. The next thing that I want to share with you today is all about knowing when we start, right? So the first day of fall begins on August 21st. The last day for students to add any new courses is going to be August 25th. And the last day to drop any courses is October 3rd. So students have the ability to add classes. And then if for some reason you decide you're kind of trying to make a decision on if you want to keep 17 credits versus the 15 credits, you have until October 3rd to drop a class without grade penalty. There is a list of all the academic dates and deadlines here on the screen, but it's also linked out for you on that orientation checklist toward the bottom. And so that's a great way for you to know what academic dates, deadlines, especially if you're trying to plan anything within the academic semester, to try to plan around those dates. If you are interested in social media platforms, staying involved with the College of Engineering through that, any new parent, new student, anyone can follow some of the social media platforms we have at the College of Engineering level. And on our checklist for orientation, it links out to all of the platforms for each of our departments if they have one. So if you're specifically interested in following a platform for a particular major, you'd be able to locate those details there on that list as well. But definitely encourage you to follow and stay informed with those platforms if that's your thing. The last thing that I have specifically that I want to talk with you about today is just reminding you about finalizing your class schedule of 15 to 17 credit hours. You can find details about the orientation website, degree requirements, and all that on that main orientation page. So definitely make sure that you bookmark that and you stay informed that way. The other thing is that on the engineering orientation checklist, you would have seen notations about marking your calendar and coming to our college session. And so there's a whole event process. It's called Weeks of Welcome here at Virginia Tech, and they start when you move in. And so Dr. Thompson and I will host a session called a college session on August 16th, 17th, and 18th at 9 o'clock in Burris Auditorium. And it's supposed to be 9 o'clock to 11 a.m. in Burris Hall Auditorium. The date you attend is dependent on when you move in. So if you move in on Wednesday the 16th, you'll attend our session on Thursday and so forth. If you move in on Thursday, you'll attend our session on Friday. But for all students, we also host a social that you'll get some pretty free, cool swag. All the departments will be there to talk to you about their programs. We have lawn games and other really cool activities for you to participate in on August 18th. So that is the Friday before classes start. So I've gotten lots of questions too around, well, when do you move in? Well, you determine that based upon your move-in date, but you definitely want to make sure that you are here in Blacksburg no later than Friday so you can attend the college session at 9 a.m. and the college social at 2 o'clock in Goodwin Hall. I will, of course, send lots of reminders and details about that as we get closer. But for today, that concludes kind of the part I wanted to talk about. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Thompson to give you some more details about the college.
Thank you, Marlena. Let's see, what order are the slides in right now?
I started it here.
Okay. Usually I do my part before Marlena's, but I was running late from another obligation, so I apologize for that. Generally, I want to welcome you to Virginia Tech and just iterate that the information we're giving you today, I'm sure you're seeing getting a lot of things kind of thrown at you. I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. There's going to be a lot of opportunities where this information will be repeated, and you'll have opportunities to speak with your advisors and ask questions later on. So first off, I want to say that Virginia Tech is recognized as an educator of high quality engineering students. And so what this means for you is that the expectations for performance are going to be quite high, but that's also going to come with a lot of opportunities to participate in engineering competition teams, undergraduate research, and interact with a lot of other students of similar capability and passion as yourself. We don't admit you to Virginia Tech if we don't think you have the potential to be successful here. That doesn't mean that you're not going to face different struggles as you adjust from high school to college life, but that is really common, and those struggles are often a good opportunity to learn and mature. Can we move on to the next slide? Thank you. The other thing about Virginia Tech is it's also very, very big. In fall of 2023, we are going to have almost 10,000 undergraduate students in the College of Engineering, and that'll be freshman to senior level. We offer Bachelor of Science degrees in 12 different engineering fields, and a lot of those degrees have multiple majors and are tracks of study that provide additional specialization in that field. I haven't tried to count them all up, but I think there's more than 50 or so options that are fully available across the college. So it's a very big institution. It's got a lot of opportunities for you, but that can also be overwhelming if you're not quite used to that sort of size. Let's move on to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about different expectations as you transition into college, and specifically coming into a College of Engineering. It's going to be different from high school in a lot of ways. I'm sure that you've heard this before. To start with, your life management is going to be very, very different. No one's going to be there to directly monitor you. You're going to have a lot more autonomy to make your own choices. You're going to need to master a lot of routines like time management, study routines, and just generally juggling all of your different academic responsibilities. But you're also going to have to solve various types of day-to-day life tasks, such as just getting your laundry done, keeping your space in order, eating properly, managing money, etc. Some of you may already be used to this, but I know for a lot of others, you'll be handling these things for the first time. If you're one of those students who's going to be doing this for the first time, this is a good learning experience for you. It will be a good learning experience for you. You're going to come out of college a lot more ready to live on your own and juggle all the routines and daily tasks of life while you're trying to start a career. And that's very important that you can do both. You're also going to have a lot more freedom, but be aware this also is going to mean the freedom to make more mistakes. So in addition to navigating life, you're also going to have to learn how to navigate the university. By this, I mean all of the different rules and requirements and deadlines that are common for a large university. We have rules about academic standards. We have rules for academic integrity, rules about the degree requirements, timelines for adding and dropping classes, timelines for changing your major, and other critical academic steps. And we don't grant many exceptions to these different rules. We also have a large bureaucracy of many different offices and specialized personnel across the campus. And you may find that very daunting when you're trying to figure out who to talk to regarding a specific problem. However, each of you is going to have an assigned academic advisor, and typically that person is the best first stop for whenever you have questions. You may have to go through a couple of different stops before you finally get to the answers you need, but there is at least a starting point for that path. We also try to be very intentional about communicating information that you need in a timely manner, particularly when key deadlines are approaching. Most deadlines you will encounter at Virginia Tech are strictly enforced, whether that's a due date for an assignment, a deadline to apply for some opportunity like a scholarship, or a deadline to take action on a university process, such as adding or dropping classes or requesting a course withdrawal. You're going to need to spend a lot of time figuring all this stuff out. It's best if you become your own advocate when you're working with faculty and other people across the campus. You may not be very comfortable talking to a professor or some administrator who's got a fancy title, but you may find yourself in that situation later on. What I want to say is that most of the faculty and administrators I know are thoughtful, understanding people, and they are going to try to help you, but there will be some limits on how much they can bend policy or make exceptions to rules. And they typically can't for different reasons. However, they can often offer advice and sometimes point out an option you may not have thought of earlier on. Let's go to the next slide. I cannot stress enough how much you need to check and read your emails from Virginia Tech. Your vt.edu email is going to be the official contact method between the university and you. Make sure that you check it at least, I recommend every day, but at least a couple times a week. During the academic year, various people from the College of Engineering Academic Affairs Office are going to be sending you numerous messages regarding upcoming deadlines and other requirements. Please keep an eye out for these and make sure you read those messages. Don't let them get assigned to your spam folder or your junk folder. Up until recently, we've been using the email associated with your application for admission, and that might be a Gmail account, it might be a Hotmail account, it might be something else. You should have already received instructions on how to set up your vt.edu email by now. If you've not already done so, please do that immediately after this orientation. With all of this said, please don't expect immediate responses when you send somebody an email or expect to be able to meet someone if you just drop by without an appointment. Typically, appointments are made through Navigate, the campus software for advising. All of the advisors and students have all of the advisors have numerous students they're responsible for or other tasks that they have to deal with in a given day. So they can't necessarily just drop everything and try to help a person who shows up without an appointment. So timeliness and asking questions is going to be really important. And the need for urgency is often not necessary if you're proactively reading the communications that come to you and paying attention to the deadlines that are listed in them. Let's move on to the next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about your classes and what you're going to experience when you come to Virginia Tech. Instruction at this level is going to feel very different from the instruction you had in high school or maybe at a community college. There's going to be a lot more emphasis on comprehension of foundational theory rather than memorization of formulas or facts and figures. You're going to need to know how to apply your understanding of something to whatever you're learning to new situations that don't look like the problems that you've had in your homework. The material that's presented to you might be presented in a much less structured manner. There will also be higher expectations for you to absorb material with less direction from the instructor, particularly reading outside of class. You're going to need to be more of an independent learner. I did not know how to study when I first went to college because I had never really needed to do it in high school. And I suspect a lot of you are going to be very similar. And what that means is that in addition to learning the material that is getting taught to you in your classes, you're also going to have to figure out how to study and learn for yourself in a lot of new ways that maybe you've never had to really do before. The time commitment might be very different. You're going to need to pay a lot of close attention to the expectations of instructors, and I highly recommend that you start all of your assignments early. Like I've said before, many of the instructors are very rigid on due dates, and they don't accept late work. They may expect the work to fit into very specific formatting standards. Particularly if you get into the computer science types of classes, a lot of that work has to be submitted electronically. And it's going to go through a specific portal, and you have to make sure that what you thought you have submitted actually did get submitted and is going to be graded. A lot of instructors are not going to give partial credit for incomplete work, and they may have policies that don't let them accept late work. So don't wait till the day before a due date to begin looking at an assignment. And do make sure you are understanding all the steps that are necessary to get that churned in successfully. You're also going to want to set aside time each day to review material from the courses, even if you don't have a homework assignment to work on or some other project that's due later. The typical rule of thumb is 2 to 3 hours outside of class for every hour that you spend in class. So for a typical 15 credit course load, that's going to mean 30 to 45 additional hours of work outside of the time that you spend in classes. That's much more than a full-time job, and that doesn't include the time that you need to spend managing your life, or if you have a part-time job that you're trying to carry, or devoting time to co-curricular activities that you may want to invest in. Let's move on to the next slide. I want to include a special warning about Chegg, ChatGPT, and other resources that are available outside of classes. Virginia Tech has an honor code, and they take academic misconduct very seriously. The most common sanction for a first offense is what's called an F-star grade. That means that you get an F for the entire class, and it goes onto your transcript with an asterisk notation that indicates that that F was for academic misconduct. You can sometimes get that asterisk removed later on by taking a special course module that they offer, but it is a very severe sanction for what may even be a minor incident in a class. A second sanction can often result in suspension or even a suspension or expulsion. So do be careful about the honor code. It's really important that you pay attention to the rules of conduct that are expected for completing assignments or exams in each of your classes. And that usually should be spelled out pretty clearly in the syllabus and will be explained by either the instructor or a graduate teaching assistant in that class. Also, don't underestimate the ability of faculty to figure out things. For those that take the honor code seriously, and that's expected of all of them, they probably know how to spot the use of Chegg or ChatGPT or copying of work or any other number of things that can be done that are honor code violations. They are very experienced. Many of them have been teaching for 20 years. They know how to spot stuff. Let's move on to the next slide. So after all these messages, I won't be surprised if you feel a little overwhelmed, but that's normal. It's perfectly fine. College is can be a very up and down experience until you get used to it. In your first year, you might encounter homesickness, loneliness, uncertainty, feelings of insecurity, anxiety, and depression. You may have been a top student in your high school and find that you're much, much closer to average at Virginia Tech. You might just plain feel lost in your classes. And I want to let you know that it's okay and it's normal to go through all of that. Looking back at my own college experience, the one lesson I wish I had learned is how to ask for help, whether it's academic help, help figuring out how to manage different types of things you're trying to do, either academically or in your life, or just counseling whenever I was having a particular rough spot in my life. I did not make use of all the resources that were available at a typical university. And I wish I had done that. Even though I did fine later on, I could have done a lot better had I been less stubborn about asking for help and getting advice when I needed it. It's normal and it's okay to experience any number of problems when you first go up to college, and you can recover from a certain amount of bad grades, but that becomes harder if you don't talk to others and get help when you need it. It's really important to define realistic expectations for yourself about how well you're going to perform and what you're going to be able to get done in a given semester, but focus on making progress at every step of the way. And we're going to try to help you do this. So if we move on to the next slide, we do list a number of resources and support on our website. We have a link for that. There are numerous opportunities for support across the university. A couple of specific ones I want to point out. We have a counselor from Cook Counseling Center who is embedded within the college. She works exclusively with engineering students and focuses on the issues that are more prevalent in their type of experience. The university also has a student success center that maintains tutoring support services, and they have peer learning coaches that you can sign up to work with. Some departments, such as computer science, because they are one of our largest programs, maintain their own tutoring service space, and that's located in Torgerson Hall. We have a group called SWAT, and that stands for Software Assistance Triage, and that's also located in Torgerson Hall. They're there to help with any computer or software needs that you might have. If let's say you're working on something and your computer just dies or has some kind of problem, you can go to SWAT, and if they can't figure out how to fix it, they can often provide a loaner laptop for you to at least get through the week. Let's see, the Dean of Students Office is a good resource if you have any type of life emergency. I also want to mention the college's Center for the Enhancement of Engineering Diversity. They're called CEED, C-E-E-D. They run our living learning communities, Galileo and Hypatia. They also have opportunities for peer mentoring and coaching. They have recently moved from Hancock Hall to Gilbert, the Gilbert Street building. But if you go to their website, which is very easy to find by Googling VTCEED, you can find out where they're located and how to get to them. If you have had disability accommodations in high school, I strongly encourage you to make contact with the Services for Students with Disabilities office at Virginia Tech and make use of accommodations here. I've seen a lot of students try to forego the use of accommodations in college with very mixed results. Accommodations are handled in a discrete fashion, and they're designed to provide a fair learning situation for students who are authorized to have them. So if you have used those in the past, please make use of them. I also be aware that if you had an IEP program in high school, the way that accommodations are handled at a university level can be very different. There's a lot more expectation for you to pick up the ball and do a lot of management on your own. We maintain a list of different resources that's available on our website. Again, the link is on the slide right here. So that wraps up my part of this orientation. I want to reemphasize that you're now a Hokie, you're part of the Virginia Tech community. We've accepted you here because we believe you're qualified to be here and we have confidence in you. I want to thank you for your time. And I think now we begin the Q&A portion of the presentation. I see a lot of questions have been showing up in the Q&A box. Marlena is going to handle answering some of those live, and I'm going to type answers in as I can. Marlena?
Sorry, I couldn't find all my buttons this morning.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think we'll start maybe at the top of the screen. When I see lots of questions in here related to specifics about your situation, related to if you have transfer credit for this, what should you take? And you definitely want to talk to your academic advisor about those scenarios. And even specifics related to, like, if you have AP credit for something, should you retake that? In general, if you do have AP credit for classes already, or you're expecting AP credit to come in, Virginia Tech recommends you move on and not retake that class, especially if you're coming in with AP credit for Calculus 1 and Calculus 2. We much rather you move on to either multivariable or linear algebra, depending on your intended major, and not retake those classes. That is our data shows that students who do AP equivalencies do really well moving on to the next level of math. So that is always personal choice, but definitely that is our recommendation based on years of experience, but also the data shows that when it comes to success in future follow-on courses. The next question I have in here is something about the Gallup-Clifton strengths. So number one, I will say kudos to you for reading the checklist. I don't think I have gotten that far down on the list with people in the past. Is it a requirement? It's just something we really recommend all students do. The Clifton strengths is a great way for students to be able to see where they fall in lines of characteristics that really are natural or innate to them. So I would highly encourage, like, anyone that ever has an opportunity to do the Clifton strengths, it's really recommended. It's not something that someone's going to knock on your door and say you haven't done this, but is it a benefit? Absolutely. So a lot of times students will use their Clifton strengths and put those on their resume when they're looking for part-time or full-time jobs, because you can really highlight your strengths as a human versus always focusing on some of the things that you are deficient in. So that's a great way for people to be able to do that. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. The next question on here is, does an associate's degree in engineering from Northern Virginia Community College exempt you from general education courses? So the question here is from Daniel, and it really depends on if it's an Associates of Arts and Sciences or Associates of Science. It cannot be an applied degree, so that's a whole different subset of degree classifications. But if it is an Associates of Arts and Sciences or Associates of Science, it really depends on the criteria. In general, our Virginia community colleges, for those types of degrees, does satisfy your general education requirements. And if you are a student, you can see on your Canvas site, there's a section under Pathways that has a little box specifically that shows you how to get your notation that you do have an associate's degree and that it satisfies your general education requirements. So definitely check with your advisor if that doesn't clarify it. But in general, yes, the associate's degree will cover your general education classes, and you would not need to do those at Virginia Tech. The next question on here is, will there be spots in Math 2214 if I don't get credit for it until the end of summer? We typically do not have issues with getting students in the classes they need. Now, you may not get the prime time that you want, but when it comes to the actual course, math is not something that we typically get concerned for. You have from basically this past Monday, June 12th, all the way up until the last day to add, which is beyond the first day of classes, which is August 25th, to finalize your class schedule. Remembering that the first day of classes is August 21st. So from my own personal stance, I would really prefer that you have your class schedule before the first day of classes, right? But in reality, you do technically have until August 25th to finalize your class schedule. So the question that's in the chat is a great one here. It says, is there a fee for dropping a class even if it's before the deadline? It really depends. So it depends on your own financial situation. So full-time status is 12 credit hours. So if you're a full-time student, 12 hours, that is the same cost of tuition as 12 as it is 19. So there's no difference in pricing. That's very different than some of our other universities around the country, or especially our Virginia Community College partners, that you're not paying per credit when it's beyond that 12 credit hours. So if it's 12 hours, 13, 14, 15, all the way up until 19, it's the same cost. So it really doesn't matter if you're in, let's say, 15 credits and you need to drop a class. That doesn't typically impact the cost. Now, what it can impact, though, are financial implications for financial aid. There's policies associated with completion of so many credits per year. If you're under some of the scholarship criteria, some of those require you to have 30 credit hours per year. So you need to have like basically 15 and 15 each semester to maintain in compliance with scholarships and stuff. So I hate that the answer is not really cut and dry, because it's not even for us. So it really depends on the individual situation. But if we're just talking price, then there is no difference between 12 hours as it is 19 hours at Virginia Tech. The next question in here is, if I get Calculus BC credit on July 5th, would I apply for Math 2114? And if so, should I wait until July 5th to add the class, or should I add 2114 right now? So Tyler, great question here. The specifics of that is related to, you cannot add Math 2114 until the prerequisite is showing on Hokie SPA. So you will have to wait until that credit is awarded for you to be able to add the follow-on prereq course. Because for those of you in the computer world, right, you know, you have to have it coded for each course. And so for each course that's in that scenario, you have to have the prereq showing on Hokie SPA for it to be able to allow you to add the next level class. So you will have to wait to be able to make that adjustment on your schedule. I can already tell from today's questions, we will probably not get to all the questions that we have. And I know myself and Dr. Thompson both have a hard stop at 10 o'clock this morning. But if there are things that are like specifics to what recommendation on course should I take, or how do I add this particular 0 credit lab, you definitely want to make sure you follow up with your academic advisor on that, and also how you schedule an appointment, to go back and reference that June 5th email and those kind of specific details. So what I'm going to try to do is go through and scan information about your questions. So there's one in here too that's, are these sessions meant for transfer students too? Absolutely, because the content that Dr. Thompson and I talked about are for all new students to the College of Engineering and Virginia Tech. It just happens to be that the majority of the students that are probably in the room are first time in college students, just because of the numbers that we have. So, but they are meant for all students in our college. We will have this recording and also the recording of this presentation posted online, hopefully shortly after the presentation on the orientation website. So instead of having that Zoom link, we will have the recording link up there for you to be able to go back and reference if you have questions. So I'm going to scan through really quickly. If it's related to a specific question related to a class, I'm going to skip through those and reference you back to your academic advisor to talk through those. So a question that just popped in through about AP credit, it says, if transfer and AP credits show on Hokie SPA, does that mean they were processed correctly? If you go into Hokie SPA grades menu and transfer and other additional credit, and you see your AP course on the left and the Virginia Tech equivalency on the right, that does mean they're processed. But you will want to look at the AP charts and everything just to verify that all of that did transfer in correctly and make sure that there was no administrative oversight there. When it comes to AP, those are pretty easy. It's standard, so there's usually never any discrepancies. When it comes to dual enrollment or transfer credits for groupings of courses, sometimes there can be some oversight in that. So definitely make sure you are monitoring that. There's a question in here about, do all college classes have a Canvas page? And the answer to that is no. It's up to the professor's discretion on whether or not they have a Canvas site for their individual class. The professor will usually let students know the modality of their grading, how they submit homeworks on that first day of classes in the syllabus conversation, where they will then direct the students to Canvas. So not every course will have a Canvas page. So a question that's came up a couple times that I will take a stab at answering is, after we submit our exam scores for transfer credits, how long does it take to process them and show up on Hokie SPA? So it can take a couple weeks depending on the particular platform that you took these exams through. So if you did AP or Virginia Community College classes and you send those electronically to Virginia Tech, those are usually in the system pretty quickly. There's usually a download and it's filtered into the system typically within a couple of days. If it's where we have to go in and hand enter a transcript, usually from an out-of-state school, then that's going to take more time for someone to go line by line and enter that in, determine the equivalency, and then get it filtered into the Hokie SPA system. But the registrar's office has been doing a fantastic job getting credits and stuff awarded in the system. So they have been working as fast as they possibly can. Usually when it comes to AP, that, like I said earlier, the big download from AP will come around July 5th. That is electronic, and then it will filter into the Hokie SPA system once that happens. And so if you are waiting on AP scores to be able to add the next follow-on class, that's usually going to happen around that July 5th date. So give it a couple days for it to show up in Hokie SPA. That's definitely one of the top priorities on my monitoring, is that particular download. I'm going to quickly scan again and see if there's any other details on here that we need to definitely make sure we get addressed today. But like I said, if it's specific related to, should I take this class or that class, or if I have this pathway, what should I do? I'm going to recommend that you definitely talk to your academic advisor about that particular question and get those addressed that way. And there's lots of questions in here about AP. So AP is pretty straightforward. So what I will recommend that you do is, on the orientation website, there's a whole section called self-evaluation of transfer credits. And there's a link to the equivalency charts where you can determine what classes, and I'm going to pop that in. I'm just going to pop it into maybe one of the key, I saw someone here. That's about Alex. Okay, I'm going to pop it into this question. It's not necessarily related, but there's a link to the AP chart that's in this last answered question, which talks about a particular pathway course. It's not addressing that particular pathway question specifically, but that does take you to the pathway chart to be able to determine what equivalency you would get at Virginia Tech for AP classes. So I do really appreciate y'all being here today. If there are questions that you really wanted to get addressed that were not specific to what course should I take or what details I need, please feel free to reach out to me. But if you have specific questions related to your class schedule, advising, definitely reach out to your advisor. All new students have been assigned an advisor as of May 8th. So you've had a person that you could reach out since then. So definitely make sure that you utilize that contact for those details. Again, thank you so much for being here today. I wish you all well and have a great day.